Story 1. The Night Janitor. When I first got hired as a night janitor, I thought it would be an easy job. It paid better than fast food, and all I had to do was clean offices after everyone had gone home. The building was massive. 20 floors of cubicles, glass-walled conference rooms, and long, empty hallways that seemed to go on forever. During the day, the place was alive with chatter, phones ringing, and printers worry. But at night, it was just me, my mop bucket, and the hum of the air conditioning. So first, I actually liked the quiet. I could put in my earbuds, listen to podcasts, and take my time without anyone breathing down my neck. But after the first couple of weeks, I started noticing things that didn't make sense. The lights. I'd turn off an entire row of office lights, move on to another floor, and when I came back, they'd be on again. Always the same ones, flickering faintly like someone had just walked through. Then came the elevators. Okay, most nights they stayed silent. Okay, but sometimes, out of nowhere, I'd hear that familiar ding. The doors would slide open, and the cab would just sit there, empty, humming, waiting. I never got in. I always took the stairs after that, but the moment that really shook me happened around 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was vacuuming near the big glass conference rooms on the 12th floor. Those rooms were all glass, so you could see reflections everywhere. I glanced up and froze. In the glass wall in front of me, I saw movement. It looked like a man, tall, thin, wearing what looked like a suit. He was standing at the end of the hallway behind me. I ripped my earbuds out and spun around. The hallway was empty. I laughed nervously to myself. Reflections can be tricky, right? Glass can show weird angles, but as I turned back, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. In the reflection, the man wasn't standing still anymore. He was walking toward me, step by step. I whipped around again. Nothing, just the endless, empty hallway. For the rest of the night, I couldn't shake it. Every reflective surface, the glass walls, the shiny floor tiles, even the windows, seemed to hold something I couldn't see directly. After that, I carried my phone with the flashlight on wherever I went. I kept checking over my shoulder. But no matter how careful I was, I'd still catch glimpses of him. Always just a step behind me in the glass. Finally, after weeks of this, I broke down and told one of the security guards during a smoke break. I said, "You ever see anyone up there at night, like in the glass?" The guard froze, his lighter halfway to his cigarette. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "You've seen him too." That was all he said. No explanation. Just those words. I quit the job that same week. Okay? And still, even now, when I walk past office buildings at night and catch a glimpse of myself in the glass, okay, sometimes I see him. Not standing in the hallway this time, standing right behind me. Story 2. The bathroom door. I used to work at a small 24-hour gas station when I was 19. It was the kind of place where, at night, you'd see maybe 3 or 4 people in the span of 6 hours. Lonely, quiet, and sometimes downright eerie. My shifts usually started around 10 at night and ended at 6 in the morning. The first couple of nights, I actually enjoyed the solitude. I'd sip on coffee, stock shelves, clean the counters, and maybe read a book when no one was around. But one night, something happened that made me dread every shift after. It was just after midnight, and I had already finished all my stocking and cleaning. The lot outside was completely empty, just the dim orange glow of the parking lights casting long shadows across the pavement. The hum of the drink coolers was the loudest thing in the room. That was when I heard the bathroom door slam shut. Now, at this station, the bathrooms were single stalls at the far end of the building. They were supposed to be locked from the outside after 10 at night to prevent people from hanging around. My manager made it very clear, no public bathroom use during overnight shifts. So, when I heard that heavy slam, it made me freeze. I glanced up at the monitor that showed the hall by the bathrooms. The hall was empty. At first, I told myself maybe it was just the building settling, or one of those random noises old places make. But then I remembered the bathroom doors were heavy. They didn't just swing shut on their own. I grabbed my keys and walked down the hall, my footsteps echoing against the tiled floor. The lights above flickered like they always did, cheap fluorescent bulbs that never stopped buzzing. I tried the men's bathroom door, locked. I tried the women's, locked too. I called out, "Hey, sorry, bathrooms are closed right now. You can't be in there." No response. I knocked harder, waiting. Nothing. I felt a chill run through me as I stood there in silence. Finally, I stuck the key into the men's door and pushed it open. The light was on. The air smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals, but the bathroom was completely empty. When I stepped back into the hallway, I felt uneasy, like someone was standing just behind me. The kind of prickling feeling you get on the back of your neck when you know you're being watched. But when I spun around, the hall was empty. I tried to shake it off and went back to the front counter. Maybe I had imagined the sound. Maybe the latch inside slipped. But about an hour later, it happened again. This time, I was restocking candy when I heard it. Slam. I froze, a bag of Skittles in my hand. It wasn't faint. It was loud, the exact same sound as before. I looked up at the security monitor. Again, the hallway was empty. "Okay," I whispered to myself. "I'm not doing this tonight." I walked slowly down the hall again, my keys tight in my hand. My heart was pounding so hard, it almost hurt. I could swear I heard faint shuffling inside the bathroom this time, like shoes against tile. "Hello?" I called out. "You're not supposed to be in there." No answer. I unlocked the men's room again and pushed it open. The lights flickered overhead. The sink dripped. The stall door was half shut. I took one step in. "Hello?" I said again, my voice breaking slightly. I nudged the stall door open with my foot. Empty. At this point, I was convinced someone was messing with me. The station was small, but it wouldn't be impossible for someone to sneak in and hide. I checked behind the trash cans, behind the shelves, even in the storage closet. Nothing. When I returned to the front, I sat there staring at the monitors, my nerves shot. And that's when I noticed something strange. On the grainy feed, showing the hallway by the bathrooms, the men's door was slowly opening. My stomach dropped. The door creaked open about halfway, then stopped. No one was there. I stood up so fast, my chair toppled over. I wasn't going back down there again. I told myself, if someone came walking out, fine. But I wasn't going to chase whatever was in there anymore. The rest of that night, I sat stiffly behind the counter, every sound making me jump. The next morning, when my manager came in, I told him what happened. He just gave me this annoyed look. "You probably forgot to lock the doors," he said, "or you left one open." I didn't. I insisted. "I checked them twice." "Well," he said with a shrug, "it's an old building. Creaks, drafts. Don't scare yourself." I wanted to argue more, but I just shut up. Then came the following night. This time, it was around 3 a.m. The store was dead quiet. Sweeping near the back, when I heard it again. Slam the bathroom. I felt anger more than fear now. I was sick of this. I stormed to the front counter, staring at the monitor. When I saw it, the door was wide open, and someone was standing just inside the frame. At first, I thought it was a customer who somehow slipped past me, but the figure wasn't moving. It just stood there, half in the doorway, half in shadow. It looked tall and naturally, tall in its head, seemed to almost touch the doorframe. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't move. I just stood there staring at the monitor, instead. Then, slowly, the figure stepped backward into the bathroom and disappeared. The door shut on its own. I didn't go down there. I couldn't. I sat frozen until sunrise, clutching the phone, debating whether to call the police. But what would I even tell them? That a shadow was using the bathroom? When my manager showed up, I didn't say a word this time. I was pale, shaking, he noticed, but just shook his head and muttered about me needing more sleep. I quit that job 2 weeks later. But I'll never forget that last image, the figure in the bathroom doorway, staring at the camera as if it knew I was watching. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear that heavy slam in my dreams. Story 3. The locked office. I used to work overnight security at a mid-sized office building. It wasn't a high-rise, more like 4 floors of rented office space that different businesses used. Law firms, small finance companies, a recruiting agency. Nothing special. Most of the offices cleared out by 6 or 7 in the evening, so by the time my shift started at 10, the place was empty. My job was simple. Walk the halls, make sure doors were locked, check the cameras, and do another walkthrough every hour. Sounds boring, right? Honestly, it was. Until one night, this building had this strange atmosphere after hours. During the day, it was busy. People moving around, phones ringing. But at night, it felt wrong, too quiet. The kind of silence where you can hear your own breathing echoing down the halls. The fluorescent lights hummed constantly. Sometimes they flickered, casting weird shadows that made the empty offices look alive. That night, I was doing my first round on the 2nd floor. I always rattled the doorknobs to make sure everything was locked. Most of the offices had glass doors, so I could peek inside. They were always dark, with desks and chairs sitting empty, just faint reflections bouncing off the glass. But when I got to the end of the hall, I noticed something. One of the offices, the recruiting agency, had its light on. That was unusual. I tried the handle. Locked. I pressed my face closer to the glass. The room looked normal: desks, chairs, a copier. Nothing out of place. So why was the light on? I made a note to tell my supervisor and kept moving. About an hour later, I checked the camera feed from the lobby monitors. That same office caught my eye again. The light was off now, but I could see movement. Okay. At first, I thought maybe a cleaner had come in late, though I hadn't seen anyone arrive. I leaned closer to the screen. The footage was grainy, black and white, but clear enough to make out shapes. There was someone standing at one of the desks, just standing, not moving. I switched angles to another camera down the hall. The figure was still there, tall and thin, back turned to the camera. I radioed the cleaning crew, just in case. No response. I knew I had to check it out. Walking back down that hallway felt wrong. Each step echoed, and the air felt heavy, like I was moving underwater. When I reached the recruiting agency door, I expected to see the light on again, but it was dark, completely dark. I cupped my hands to the glass and peered in. Empty. No one was inside. I rattled the handle again, still locked. Spite. I backed away slowly, goosebumps running up my arms. Maybe the cameras were glitching. Maybe the movement was just bad resolution. But in the pit of my stomach, I knew that wasn't true. It's the rest of the night. I couldn't stop watching that office on the monitors. I tried to distract myself with rounds, but my eyes always drifted back. At around 3 a.m., it happened again. The light inside flickered on. I froze in my chair, staring at the screen. This time, the figure wasn't standing at the desk. It was at the door, right up against the glass, facing the camera. My breath caught. The figure's face wasn't clear, just a blur of pale against the dark. But I could see its hands pressed flat against the glass. And then, as I watched, the light inside flickered off, pitch black. When it came back on, the room was empty again. I didn't go near that office again that night. I couldn't. Instead, I sat glued to the monitors until the sun came up, my heart thudding every time the cameras glitched. When my supervisor arrived, I told him everything. He laughed it off, said I was probably just tired, that maybe the cleaners had come in and I missed them, but I know what I saw. Okay? And here's the part that still chills me. The next night, when I came in, my supervisor pulled me aside. He looked uneasy. "You said you saw something in the recruiting office?" he asked. "Yeah," I told him. He rubbed his jaw, hesitating. "That office hasn't been rented in months. No one works in there. It's supposed to be locked up." My stomach dropped. I asked him to come with me, to check the room together. We went up the second floor, and sure enough, the office was dark, empty, dust on the desks, but the lock on the inside of the door, it was broken. It's like someone had been opening it from the inside. I only lasted 2 more weeks at that job. Every shift after, I felt eyes on me whenever I passed that hallway. I stopped checking the door. I stopped looking at that camera feed. But one night, just before I quit, I swear I heard it. From the second floor, echoing down the stairwell, a faint tapping, like someone knocking softly on the glass. Story 4. The basement records room. I used to work the night shift at a hospital. Not a nurse or doctor. My job was in medical records. So basically, I handled files, organized paperwork, and did inventory in the archives. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid better than most late-night jobs. The hospital itself was old, with parts of it dating back to the 1950s. Newer wings had been added, but the basement where the records were kept was the oldest part. Stone walls, low ceilings, single bare bulbs hanging every 20 feet. Okay, most nights, I was alone down there. The fluorescent lights and the occasional distant clatter from upstairs were the only sounds. It was lonely, but manageable. Until one night when I realized I wasn't as alone as I thought. That night started normal. It was around 11 p.m., and I had a cart full of patient files to sort. The records room stretched down long aisles of shelves, some reaching to the ceiling. The air was always cool, almost damp, and it smelled faintly of paper and cleaning solution. So I was halfway through shelving when I heard it. Footsteps, slow, steady footsteps, echoing down the aisle. I froze, clutching a file to my chest. No one ever came down here at night. Even the janitors avoided the basement. "Hello?" called. My voice echoed back to me, thin and nervous. The footsteps stopped. I waited, straining to listen. Nothing. Just silence. Finally, I shook it off. Maybe it was the pipes, or my imagination. I pushed the cart farther down the aisle and kept working. But a few minutes later, I heard it again. This time, it was closer. I whipped my head around, scanning the shelves. My heart was racing. I couldn't see anyone, but I knew what footsteps sounded like. I pulled out my phone, shining the flashlight between the shelves. Dust motes swirled in the beam. Nothing. I told myself maybe it was someone upstairs and the sound carried down. But deep down, I knew better. I forced myself to keep working. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every shadow between the shelves seemed darker than it should have been. Around 2 a.m., I sat down at the little desk near the back of the records room to take a break. I had just opened a soda when I heard something new. Whispering. Faint, muffled whispers, like a conversation happening just a few aisles over. I froze, soda can halfway to my lips. I couldn't make out words, just a soft hiss of voices. I stood, slowly, straining my ears. The whispers grew louder, then stopped abruptly. "Who's there?" called out. Silence. I grabbed my flashlight again and walked down the aisle. My shoes crunched softly on the concrete floor. "Okay." When I turned the corner, my light caught movement. "Okay." A figure ducked behind the shelves. I gasped, stumbling back. My flashlight shook in my hands. "Hey, you can't be down here," I yelled. No answer. I rushed forward, turning the corner. Empty. The aisle stretched out, both ends vanishing into shadow. I stood there, breathing hard, my heart thudding in my ears. There was nowhere for anyone to go. But I swear, I had seen someone. I tried to convince myself it was stress, or maybe another worker cutting through. But after that, I couldn't relax. Every creak of the shelves, every flicker of the lights made me jump. At 3 a.m., I decided I'd had enough. I was about to head upstairs when something made me stop. From deep in the rows of shelves came a new sound, the sharp creak of a door opening. I froze. There weren't any doors down here besides the one to the stairwell. Then I heard the slam of a file drawer closing. I knew for certain I wasn't alone. Crept down the aisle, holding my flashlight like a weapon. My mouth was dry and every step felt heavier than the last. As I turned another corner, the beam of my flashlight landed on something that made my stomach drop. A single file lay on the floor, papers scattered around it. I bent down, picking it up with trembling hands. The name on the file made my blood run cold. It was mine. My full name, my birth date, my information. But I had never been a patient at this hospital. I dropped the file, stumbling backward. My flashlight flickered, then went out. In the darkness, I heard it again, whispering, this time right behind me. I spun around, fumbling with the flashlight. My breath came in short gasps. Finally, the beam flicked back on. And there, just for a split second, I saw them. Figures standing between the shelves, pale faces watching me. When the light steadied, they were gone. I didn't wait to see more. I bolted, my footsteps echoing wildly as I sprinted for the stairwell door. My hands shook as I fumbled with the handle, shoving it open and slamming it shut behind me. I didn't go back down that night. The next morning, I told my supervisor everything. He gave me this look like he didn't believe a word, but he didn't laugh either. Finally, he sighed and said, "You're not the first to say something about that basement." When I asked what he meant, he just shook his head. Files go missing. People hear things. Some staff refuse to work down there. But if you're too uncomfortable, maybe this isn't the job for you. I didn't argue. I quit a week later. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that file with my name on it. I never saw it again. And I still wonder what was keeping records on me. That wraps up today's video of disturbing workplace horror stories. Working late, whether it's in a quiet office, a gas station, or even a hospital basement, can bring a kind of silence most people never experience. And in that silence, sometimes things appear that can't be explained or forgotten. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and let me know. And if you enjoyed these kinds of true horror stories, don't forget to subscribe for more. Thanks for listening, and be careful on your next night shift.